So you're finally having that conversation with your newly made friend. And you're wondering, what verb form should I use for what I am saying? Well, don't fret. Kate, the English teacher, is here to tell you that. So if you are trying to give someone information about things that you do every single day, or just facts that are common facts that are generally known to be true, you would use the simple present tense. And that is the focus of today's lesson. This lesson is, what is a verb? A verb is commonly known as an action word in your sentence. For example, run. I like to run. Read. I like to read. These are both actions which you enjoy doing, and therefore are verbs. Now, how do you get it into the simple present tense? Well, if it is something that you do on an everyday basis, you are going to say, I read every day. I run every day. There are 3 common words that you can use in your sentences that would signal to the other person that you do this action every day. You can say always, ever, or never. I always run in the mornings. I always eat my breakfast before going to work. I never read. That's if you don't do it ever. And I never jog. When you're using the present tense, there are 2 forms that you need to know. The simple form is used with I, you, and plural pronouns, and it is the most common form found in dictionaries. And then you have the S or ES forms that are used with the third person pronouns, such as he, she, and it. Please keep in mind that objects and countries are used with the pronoun it. We do not have feminine or masculine pronouns for countries and objects like we do in, let's say, the French language. We just refer to objects as it. So the book is it. It is not used with he or she, the masculine or feminine pronouns, like in some languages. To give you an example of how this works, I will use a common verb such as make, which is to create or do something, such as making a cake. So you would use, I make a cake. You make a cake. He makes a cake. She makes a cake. You cannot say it makes a cake because objects can't make cakes, but if it was a robot, it makes a cake. We make a cake. You make a cake, in this case plural you. And they make a cake. The pronoun they is for both ladies and gentlemen in the plural form. Notice that I only used ES at the end of he, she, and it makes, not to be used with any of the other pronouns. This is true for all the other verbs. Let's give another example. Let's use the example think. I think, you think, he thinks, she thinks, it thinks, we think, you think, and they think. It is exactly the same rule used with the other verb that we used, such as make. However, of course, in the English language, there are a lot of exceptions. And we will get into that a bit later. Now, let's review the negative form for something that you do not do. So for example, I do not make cake. You do not make cake. He does not make cake. She does not make cake. We do not make cake. You do not make cake. And they do not make cake. Notice that the verb does had to change from the verb do for he, she, and it once again. Now, let's get into some of those irregular verbs. Now, if you are not speaking, but you are writing the present tense of verbs, you're probably wondering, when do I use an S and when do I use an ES? Well, there is a simple rule. If your verb ends in certain letters, you will have to use ES. These examples are verbs that end in O, CH, SH, SS, and X. For example, for the verb mix, you cannot simply spell out the word mixes, M-I-X-S. That would be incorrect. You would have to use the ES form. So M-I-X-E-S, she mixes. Another example would be for guess. So he guesses. You cannot just spell G-U-E-S-S-S. You can never have three S's, right? So you would have to use the ES form, G-U-E-S-S-E-S. Pretty simple, right? So if your word does not have some of these endings, such as O, CH, SH, SS, and EX, or just X, you will use the simple S at the end of your verbs. Now that all sounded pretty simple, right? Present simple, get it? However, the English language has some irregular verbs that unfortunately do not follow these rules, such as the verbs have and be. These ones, unfortunately, just have to be memorized. There is no other way around it, as they do not follow the same rules. So for example, with the verb be, you're going to say, I am, you are, he is, she is, it is, we are, you are, and they are. Notice that we didn't even use the word be anywhere in there, but that is the present perfect tense of the verb be. Also, for the verb have, you will say, I have, you have, he has, she has, it has, we have, you have, and they have. So there you go. This is how you use the irregular verbs. Another thing that you need to know is how to ask these as questions. So for example, with the verb be, you're going to switch the words around in the sentence. So instead of saying, I am funny, you're going to say, am I funny? Are you funny? Is she funny? Is he funny? Are we funny? Are you funny? Are they funny? Okay. Now, for have, it follows a different rule. So once again, just something that needs to be remembered. So I have the book. You will only add the word do in front of that. Do I have the book? Do you have the book? Does she have the book? Does he have the book? Does it have the book? Do we have the book? Do they have the book? Or do you have the book? So notice how those two sentences are different depending on which verb you use. With the simple verbs that are not irregular, you will use the same rule as you just did for have. Do I make cake? Do you make cake? Does he make cake? Does she make cake? Does it make cake? Do we make cake? Do you make cake? And do they make cake? Notice that the intonation on questions in English always goes up at the end when you're asking a question that is a yes or no answer possibility. However, if you are asking a general question, you will use a different intonation. What kind of weather is it outside? Notice that the intonation rises and then falls at the end of the sentence. So let's give you another example. If you want to know if a person is reading a specific book, you will say, "Are you reading that book?" The intonation will go up at the end of the sentence. Are you reading that book? However, if I want to know what type of a book or what is the book that the person is reading, I will ask, "What book are you reading?" Or, "What is the name of the book you're reading?" My intonation is now going down because it's not a simple yes or no question anymore. I am expecting the title of the book or the type of book, not a yes or no question. Another thing that you need to remember is how to say things in the negative and how does it differ with the irregular and regular verbs. So for example, with the verb to be, you will say, "I am not a nurse." The word not will come after the verb. I am not a nurse. You are not a nurse. He is not a nurse. She is not a nurse. It is not a nurse. We are not nurses. You are not nurses. And they are not nurses. Now for the verb to have, it is going to follow the same rule as the other verbs, such as make, think, and so on. And you will add do not before the actual verb, such as have. So for example, I do not have the book. You do not have the book. He does not have the book. She does not have the book. It does not have the book. We do not have the book. You do not have the book. And they do not have the book. This is the rule for all of the other verbs as well. I hope you have enjoyed today's lesson on simple present tense. The next video that I will be putting up shortly is going to talk about the simple past tense for actions that you want to say happened in the past. So I look forward to seeing your comments down below. Please let me know if there is anything that you wish for me to talk about or to teach you. And as always, please click the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Until next time, guys. Thanks. Have a good one.